Madam President.
The senator from New Hampshire.
Thank you, Madam President. I come to the floor today to urge my colleagues to permanently reauthorize the Land and Water Conservation Fund. This has been a very important program for preserving our outdoor spaces and the beauty of our country, and particularly to my home state of New Hampshire, where this fund actually comes from leasing revenues from oil and gas. And so these are dollars that are supposed to be designated for this purpose since the law was passed in 1965. And I'm very disappointed that this body has allowed LWCF's authorization to expire. We have a bipartisan bill, Senator Burr, Senator Bennett, myself, the Burr-Bennett Ayotte bill, that is one that I'm going to in a minute seek unanimous consent on, that has a number of co-sponsors. This is very bipartisan. We have co-sponsors from Senator Tester, Senator Shaheen, Senator Alexander, Senator Collins, Senator King, and this would permanently reauthorize the Land and Water Conservation Fund. We know from a previous vote on the Senate, we have 60 votes for permanent reauthorization, that people on both sides of the aisle feel very strongly about preserving our great outdoors in this country. And in New Hampshire, the Land and Water Conservation Fund has used on 650 projects from every aspect of our state, from Sunapee to Ossipee to Berlin to Seabrook to my home city of Nashua, of Mines Falls Park, which I run in whenever I'm home every day. I love that park. And if you look at what's going to happen in New Hampshire, Madam President, this weekend, according to New Hampshire travel officials, 660,000 visitors are expected to travel to New Hampshire this coming weekend over the Columbus Day holiday. We welcome them, but they're coming to experience the beauty and iconic fall foliage of New Hampshire. And the Land and Water Conservation Fund has given them opportunities to enjoy our great outdoors, whether it's hiking, whether it's bicycling, whether it's hunting, whatever they like to do in the great outdoors. So protecting our treasured outdoor spaces is not a partisan issue. This is an issue that we should work together on to extend this important fund. And so with that, I urge this body to immediately take up and pass reauthorization for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and to continue to preserve our great outdoors in this beautiful country, in my beautiful state of New Hampshire, which has helped preserve our beauty not only in New Hampshire but across this country and our nation. And so with that, I would ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of calendar number 10 of S 338. I ask unanimous consent that the bill be read a third time and passed. The motion to reconsider be laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Madam President.
The senator from Utah.
Reserving the right to object, I want to be very clear about what it is that we're talking about today. Today we're discussing the expiration of the Land and Water Conservation Fund's ability to accrue additional revenues to the fund, nothing more. Now, according to the Congressional Research Service, the Land and Water Conservation Fund currently has an unappropriated balance of around $20 billion that can be appropriated to implement LWCF projects. And if you assume the current rate of appropriations, roughly $300 million per year, it'd take around 60 years before that fund is exhausted. Meanwhile, we've got both the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee and its House counterpart, the House Natural Resources Committee, working on reforms to the LWCF to address some of the issues that are causing a lot of people to be concerned with the LWCF. Issues involving, for instance, the maintenance backlog that we have with regard to many of our national parks and public lands, and also with regard to the manner and at which the manner in which the federal government acquires new land. This is of concern to many of us, especially those of us who come from a state like mine where the federal government owns nearly 70% of the land. So on that basis, Madam President, I object.
Objection is heard.
Madam President?
The senator from New Hampshire.
Madam President, I'm obviously disappointed that an objection has been rendered from my colleague from Utah, but I would say that I really appreciate his interest in making sure that we maintain our public parks and lands, and this is certainly an interest that we all share together. It is just is my hope, if we don't reauthorize this program, I know that there's some very important projects that can go forward, not only in New Hampshire, because you can't do anything new unless you reauthorize it in New Hampshire, but across this country. So I'm hoping, disappointed that there's an objection, but I'm hoping that this is something that we can overcome and make sure that we can work together and get this reauthorized. Thank you, Madam President.